everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm Jessica Rubino. I'm the Vice President of Content and Summits at New Hope Network. I'm really excited about today's discussion, so thank you all for joining us. I am joined by Mike Dovbish, who is the Executive Director of Nutrition Capital Network, and Bryn Ferris, who's the CEO and co-founder of Grounded. We're going to have a great discussion today. We have lots to cover. You'll learn a little bit about Nutrition Capital Network and all of the great things we have coming up this year. And most importantly, be able to stay really connected to the investment landscape right now. We'll talk about some of the things that we saw in 2025 and what to expect for the year ahead, how to prepare for that, and then have a really great discussion with Bryn about what it takes to build a successful brand in today's market and to use capital wisely. So action-packed. Mike, thank you for kicking us off today. And for those who don't know what Nutrition Capital Network is, tell us a little bit about NCN.
Thanks, Jessica. So, Nutrition Capital Network, we are a series of investor meetings. We're also a community and ecosystem of investors, sponsors, selection committee members, and of course, companies that present at our events looking for capital or partnerships. So, we have a packed 2026. We have 6 meetings this year. I won't go through all of them, but the next one coming up is the Deal Room. It's our first time ever doing an event at Expo West, so we're really excited about that. But first off, I want to thank our sponsors. So some of these sponsors, in fact, many of them have been with us for over a decade. So they love the community, they love being involved with companies that are on the cutting edge of innovation. And they love what we're doing and love supporting all the entrepreneurs that come through. So thank you. Okay, so CPG Innovation Summit. So we are just one part of the day. We are the Deal Room. So we're going to be having approximately 9 companies. We might have 10. I need to get the okay from Jessica, but it will be on Tuesday morning. And we're also going to have some content, as you can see from our screen. And here are the companies so far that are going to be presenting. And it's a wonderful group, a range of companies, anything from beverage to supplements and cleaning products, sustainable cleaning products. In fact, this company is coming to us from Australia. So just a real exciting group of companies that will be presenting that day. And again, we are just one part of the CPG Innovation Summit, and I'm going to let Jessica talk a little bit more about it. I'm putting up here a couple other sessions, but Jessica, if you want to talk a little bit more broadly about the day.
Yeah, definitely. And I love all those companies. There's so many great representations of some of the key trends that we're seeing driving growth and opportunity in the CPG industry. I really like seeing some companies that I've discovered at Newtopia Now or through the Nexty Awards now presenting in the Deal Room. So really giving them the opportunity to connect with investors at Expo West. And even though the deadline has closed to submit, I encourage, if we do have any brands on this call today, if you're going to be at Expo West, definitely come to the CPG Innovation Summit and spend time in the Deal Room, because you'll be able to see these companies presenting, see what resonates with investors, and be able to network with investors in that room. And then the overall day, it's something new that we're introducing for this year at Expo West. We understand that there's a lot that goes into innovating as a brand in the CPG industry. And we know that those conversations are really important and that Expo West is the place to have them. What does it mean to innovate in a sustainable, viable way that is going to bring your business into the future? So the CPG Innovation Summit on Tuesday, March 3rd is all about that. It's about the content, education, networking, and connections that are going to help you achieve that as a business. So as you can see here, there's just a couple of the highlights, the content highlights for the day. We're going to have a great keynote with Whole Foods CEO Jason Beekle and food justice advocate Mark Bittman. They're going to talk about this kind of grounded approach to innovation and what it means to really connect with today's consumers, what they want from their foods and dietary supplements and CPG products. And then we also have our pitch slam, which will happen later in the day, and really emerging brands sharing their innovation stories. Then throughout the day, we have a whole range of other content. We'll have workshops on marketing and branding and how to leverage AI while staying close to the humanity of your company. We have a retail and distribution workshop about what the latest and greatest techniques and tactics are to succeed at retail, whatever that looks like for your company. And then, of course, tons of great networking opportunities throughout the day. Finally, we'll have something called the Content Creation Studio, which enables companies to go into a professional space, record video and social content and podcasts and learn best practices and in really getting your brand story out there. So in addition to the Deal Room, which is a core part of our programming for CPG Innovation Summit, we have lots of other things going on that day. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'm happy to answer them. But thanks, Mike. Love talking CPG Innovation Summit for sure.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, it's going to be a great day. And I don't think there's a better time actually to be coming to Expo West. There's just a lot to take in. We're in a really dynamic place right now in the industry. And I think we've captured a lot of that in our report. The report looks at what we did and what happened in the industry in 2025 from a transaction standpoint and also trends and also looking forward into 2026. And we've just seen a lot of change, but a lot of interest in the health and nutrition industry. So the report will be out February 11th, but I'm going to be running through some important charts that I think highlight what we're seeing and what's out there right now. So I think you could see the top line number down again. I think though what that's distorted quite a bit by the entrance of technology, whether it's ag tech, food tech, or just straight up technology, different types of delivery companies. You can see that really peaked out in 2022 and has come down since. But as you can see, branded food and beverage did not have as much of a fall. And of course, supplements have really shown as a bright spot in 2025. And we called 2025 the year of the supplement. So really just a remarkable shift. And you can see the overall percentage of supplements for the number of transactions in 2017, it was about 1.3%, and a little bit of my screen is covered up, but I think we are up and over 5 to 6% of all supplement transactions as a total of health and nutrition. And then in the core group of supplements and branded food and beverage, supplements increasingly takes a larger and larger share of that of those core two segments. Those core two segments, of course, is a big chunk of what we see at Expo West, although there's going to be more there, including personal care and pet, along with other categories. But these are the two, and it's just really notable about what a dent supplements has put into the industry.
Yeah, this is so exciting, Mike. And I know that as we head into Expo West, two of those categories that you called out as having stronger years last year and kind of seeing some momentum build. I love the year of the supplement, 2025 being the year of the supplement, and then also branded food and beverage. So we'll see those categories really strong at Expo West and a lot of innovation and trends that we're tracking that we'll see manifest in Anaheim. Love to talk about that more, supplements specifically. I know on that next slide you had some of the supplement financings. What were some of the common denominators around the types of companies or areas that you saw investors focus in on specifically in the supplement space? Lots of great brands up here.
I mean, I don't think 2025 has been the only year for this company, but Groons, I call it Groons. Maybe there's another way to say it, but They are just an explosive company. I don't know what their revenue is right now. I've heard around 500 million, but if it's anything close to that, that's just incredible. So gummies, just the gummy format has really taken off, but also women's health. So companies like Biologica, Veracity. Biologica is a new company. They raised money, and it's from the founder of Allbirds. So a shoe company went into women's supplements. So the founder, I can't remember his name. It's him and his wife, and they started Biologica. They're seeing opportunities here with women's health, and along with Veracity, um, I hear they're doing very well right now, and a lot of rave reviews on their product line. They raised money last summer. So just some really interesting companies. Unfabled, another women's health company, smaller company, but raised capital out of the UK. So just across the board, women's health, and that has come into 2026 as well. We're seeing that trend continue.
Yeah, completely agree, Mike. And I've been really excited to see just this whole kind of hormonal health conversation really evolve and become much more dynamic, reflective of the real needs of consumers. And I think that will evolve into more nuanced products for men's health as well. So that's some of the things that we're tracking early on. It's interesting to say that, right? Because women's health is something that's been so underrepresented for so long. And now we see major investments in the science and then the products to reach women. And we're also acknowledging that some of the men's health products aren't quite as kind of detailed and focused as they should be. So it's really cool, that whole hormonal health category. And then the only other thing that I would add to what you said that we're seeing as we track trends is this kind of benefit stacking approach. So you can see it a little bit here, but looking at blending, overall women's health or hormonal health with stress and sleep and these other kind of wellness benefits that are really critical to consumers right now. So seeing a lot of cool stuff there. I also like a lot of the packaging here. So there's some fun packaging innovations too. There are a couple other categories, Mike, that I think totally switching gears out of supplements. They've been these like sleepy little categories. Well, they've been sleepy big
Yes.
categories, right? Oh, more on supplements? Okay, we can do.
Well, clarification from you on this, but I did want to make a note. There were a couple of alumni that raised capital last year, CawX and Gamer Sups. One women's health company is called Honeypot. It's more of an OTC product. They were an NCN alumni, so I had to make a little bit of a plug there. But I
Mhm.
wanted to know if you could go a little bit more into what it means by stage of life, and then how does that play into the health stack that you just talked about? Because I think there's so much more to go into, and I think our next LinkedIn Live will be around women's health in more detail. But I know for myself, I need a little bit more education. So can you share a little bit about that stage of life and all that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Mike, and definitely this life stages piece. And as it relates to women's health, of course, hormonal needs and the needs of consumers overall change significantly throughout the course of one's life. And so that's a way for companies to get more personalized, more focused, make sure that the science is really supporting what people need at different stages. So whether that be, a lot of the conversations right now are around menopause, but recognizing that menopause isn't the only part of the conversation. There's perimenopause, there's postmenopause, and even within those kind of subsets of this broader menopause category, there's all these very specific needs and different ingredients and formulations that are going to best cater to them. We also see, later in life, and it ties to this health span conversation of people really want to not just survive, but to thrive at these different stages. So again, I think it's a nice way to kind of marry the personalization conversation with hormonal health and women's health. And then finally, we see that kind of crossing over with diagnostics and wearables and how people are actually tracking results and understanding, sleep and stress needs during these certain stages of life, but even during their cycles for women to really understand what happens during their cycles. That's kind of a new conversation, which is so fascinating because it's such a significant part of women's health. So, yeah, there's a lot there for sure, Mike. So I'm looking forward to an upcoming Women's Health LinkedIn Live for NCN.
For sure. Okay, you were talking about the other categories. And yeah, there were some other categories. And before we talk about that, we can't not talk about beverage and how that continues to be just a hot area of just so many different types of companies that have beverage companies that have raised capital. I remember back, I think this was when Kabuchi was coming around over a decade ago, and this was when there was the discussion and conversations about, oh, is this how, is beverage going to be this category where that's where consumers are going to get their functional ingredients, and just what is that going to look like? Because it was starting to really take off as just an expansive category, taking share away from Coke and Pepsi, and it just year after year just delivers. So many different types of companies. You can see just a few of them here. But the quieter categories that we identified, um, sauces and also dairy. So dairy's been really interesting. Three of those companies are US based. All Things Butter is based in the UK. I picked that one up in some article and I thought that was interesting. And it was all around the time of the announcement around Painterland sisters, Chobani and Alex. So, Jessica, any thoughts here on what you're seeing, what the other team members are seeing here with regards to trends?
Yeah, I mean, these are great ones. We see so many beverages. It is not dying down at all. And so it's been fun to see the innovation there. Clean ingredients, really innovative flavor profiles. And we just love trying all the new stuff that comes in. And certainly in the Nexty Awards, one of the biggest categories is in that beverage space. A lot of USDA organic and regenerative products in that space as well. And then in the dairy category, that one has been so fascinating because we've seen such significant growth around both dairy and meat products. And that's something we reported on last year at our State of Natural keynote at Expo West. We'll have that again this year, Wednesday morning. And we'll talk about the evolution of these categories. But people are kind of embracing animal-based proteins as well as plant-based proteins. So you're just seeing this category is so diverse. But in dairy specifically, one of the cool things is that the products are just a lot more unique. There's certainly, if you look at Painterland, the story of the people behind the products continues to shine. And some of the things that we're seeing that aren't represented on this screen are, these kind of global flavor profiles showing up in dairy, or frozen dairy is fun and exciting again. So it's cool to see the types of innovations that can infuse new energy into this. And then, of course, there's some cultural and societal movements that are driving people back to the dairy category as well. So, yeah, these are big ones, and it's definitely been fun to see that. And then, of course, in sauces and condiments and pantry staples, to just see that you can bring a little bit of excitement into those once sleepy categories.
For sure. So, yeah. So again, 2025, interesting. Obviously, big with supplements, some quieter categories coming to a head here with investors. They're paying attention. And but what is it looking like in 2026? Well,
And Mike, real quick,
oh,
before we do that, I saw we got a couple questions, so I'm going to throw them out before we move on to the next topic. So, Jeff, thank you for your question. His question is, our total financings, which was on a previous slide, is that investment or debt capital or both? How do you track that, Mike?
I track that as investment.
Perfect. And then Tim, thank you for your question. I'm not sure which trend this was about, but I think it's overall supplements. Tim asked, it's great to see the year of supplements, this trend. Curious if you're to hear if there are any notable subcategories, especially within supplements, that are driving the financings. I think we talked about that a little bit in women's health. Protein. Now I'm seeing a lot more fiber and supplements, but any others that you're seeing, Mike?
No, I think that captures it. I think, though, we're paying very close attention to the pill format of GLP-1 and then how much more mainstream that becomes, and then how that's going to affect the broader market in nutrition and supplements, because it sure definitely will. So I imagine we'll be reporting back on that, but I think that covers most of it. Um, we are already at 20 minutes in. I have a few more slides, and we have to talk to Bryn because he has a great story. So, just a couple minutes here. Jessica and I were talking a little bit, well, a little bit more than just a little bit, about what we're seeing so far in 2026. Obviously, 1 month does not make a trend, but it is noticeable that we almost doubled the number of financing, so the number of deals that have happened. So, and they are just across the board. So, children's health, snacks, Snoop Dogg's ice cream, Dr. Bombay, Good Bacteria is a supplement company, Ohm is mushrooms, um, Cream Co. Meats is regenerative bacon. So it is across the board. They're getting funded, and it's really exciting, particularly heading into Expo West. And then, of course, M&A deals up over 60% from January of 2025. And again, across the board, California Olive Ranch have been around for a while. They got acquired. Bachans, which just got acquired for 400 million, and they didn't raise much money. They had raised only like $15 million. So what's exciting about a company like that is the investors, many of them that were involved, we believe, well, that's been a good exit for them, but they also invest back in the industry. So that's very exciting. Wonder Belly, Go Raw, so just a lot of deals. Very exciting. And we're going to keep tabs on this and see how we move into the rest of Q1. But this takes us now to our guest speaker, Bryn Ferris. Bryn is with Grounded. They are originally based in the UK, and he has since moved to Santa Monica, California. So, Bryn, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. So, if you could just spend a minute or two about your company and why you decided to move.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jessica, for having me. As Mike said, I'm Bryn. I run Grounded with my longtime school friend and co-founder, Gabriel. We're both originally from London. We've been running Grounded for 5 years. Predominantly started as a sort of niche health food brand in London, but after COVID, we quickly realized that there was a sort of a wider application for the brand into mainstream retail and gyms and food service in the UK. We had a pretty strong start in Whole Foods in the UK. We're the best-selling protein beverage there. Our velocities are between 35 and 40 a week. And with sort of a pat on the back from our bar at Whole Foods in the UK, we thought we'd try our luck with the Whole Foods bar in the US. It really started with a very simple email explaining that our proposition, which is a better for you milkshake with 20 grams of protein made with only real ingredients, could bring in more consumers into a category which arguably has only really gone after a sort of a singular type of customer, and that actually the category could be far larger. It's around about a 2 billion category, but when you compare that to healthy snacks, which is over 20 billion, it makes you understand how sort of niche the consumer is for protein shakes, and actually there's many more people who could otherwise buy into it if it appealed to them. The reality is, I think a lot of protein shakes are stuff with a lot of artificial ingredients to make perfect nutritionals, and that doesn't appeal to most people. I think 50% of the US and indeed the UK would count themselves as foodies, and so these are people who love good ingredients and they love taste, and these are important sort of emotional moments for them during the day. And most protein shakes don't tend to tick that box. So we take a really firm stance against artificial ingredients. We really push an indulgent taste, and we use only real ingredients. Myself and Gabriel made it in our kitchen at home. We didn't use any flavor houses or food tech consultants. Sort of rotated between Gabriel's mum's kitchen and my mum's kitchen, who was sort of least angry at us for ruining their countertop. And after about 18 months and about 1,000 iterations, we came up with the formulas that we have now. 10 or less ingredients, ones that you recognize and pronounce, and that you could probably find your baking cupboard because we did.
Excellent. And there are a couple things that that struck me that was really exciting that I found about your company. And one of them was you had a you have a US investor that came on, I believe, and that's before you moved the company. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we had Lever VC invest in our pre-seed rounds when we first launched during COVID. They've been supportive. They've actually followed on a few times since their first initial investment. More recently, we've now been bringing on some strategic angels from the US. We've got some great CPG players who've come in, who've helped him with their knowledge and their understanding of the space. And I think it signaled a bit of a change in the winds for, predominantly we were a UK based company, and now with our focus on the US, it's now translating into sales. The US business is now 30% of our business, and growing faster than UK, although the UK is also growing. It's, I think, made at least the first stage of angels start to realize that we're moving in the US, and I don't think it'll be too long before we bring on an early stage fund, and we're actually raising at the moment. So that's my focus, being here in California. And once we've done that, we'll be launching 5 new products as well, which is super exciting. So we're hoping that we'll triple the business by the end of the year. We haven't really launched any new products. We've been slightly capped by manufacturers, but that situation's changed now, and we can launch new flavors and formats. And so we plan, as I say, to launch quite a few this year, really to capitalize on not just different need states, so people snacking, go out and about, smaller formats, but also new flavors. We have a chocolate and a mint choc, which the mint choc is our sort of quiet hero product, even though the chocolate's slightly more popular. People really go crazy about the mint. But we'll be launching new flavors in the coming year just to widen our appeal, because that's what it's all about.
I think
I
Jessica
love
has a
that.
question,
Oh,
and
I did.
I just
Go
have to
ahead,
say
sorry.
I love the mint chocolate shake. I love mint, and I know it's a polarizing flavor, but it's amazing.
Is
Thanks, Mike.
mint chocolate polarized? Who doesn't like mint chocolate? If you don't like mint chocolate,
I
talk
know
to
what you
me,
mean, Mike.
because
I know what
that's
you mean. Yeah, it's funny. It's the one that people go craziest about. But I guess the chocolate is a crowd pleaser, and that there's very few people who dislike chocolate. So yeah,
well, I
we're
can't wait.
excited to bring out
Okay.
new flavors that are gonna widen the appeal past chocolate, put it like that.
Well, that was my question related to that. I love how you're positioned as, this protein shake that can reach the kind of non-traditional protein shake consumer. And you see
Yeah.
that in your positioning. I love the clean label aspect, of course, and how you really message that effectively. I'm curious how you think about that when you are, taking capital, working with investors. How are you investing and really understanding your current customer and your future customer so that you set yourself up for that long-term success and market expansion?
Yeah, we've really dug into the weeds on this one. So we've done over 250 demos across Whole Foods predominantly in the US, and at each demo we have a set of questions that we ask customers, often whether they buy protein shakes, and if not, why not? What are they looking for? What are they not looking for? And this informs our formulation changes, texture changes, if we need to, packaging certainly changes to really highlight things, particularly taste. We've interviewed customers as well. So we've had 45-minute interviews where we really dig a little deeper on customers and ask them why they buy the product. And we found it sits into 2 sort of subcategories under the heading mindful mainstream. And that's someone that is mindful about what they put in their body. And you've got protein hunters that look for protein at every opportunity. They're always trying to increase their protein. And then you have what we've called good fuel seekers. And that's someone who is looking for things that are on the go. It's not necessarily a meal replacement, but it's more to tide them over until they can have a meal. But they want real ingredients, and they don't want to get rubbish and put it in their body, and they realize that doesn't make them feel good. I think one of the things that we often hear from our product is, and because it has real ingredients, people feel good after drinking it. And I think that's a really important part of the sort of emotional journey of having something that tastes nice and then makes you feel good afterwards. And if we're doing that, then hopefully we're doing our job.
I think I heard the term protein hunters.
Yes.
Is that a known term out there?
I don't know. It's something that we use internally. But I'd probably count myself as a protein hunter. Um,
Okay.
I think you have to sort of slightly
You mean
stereotype, I
like you have
think.
like a crossbow and arrow hunting animals?
I wish, Mike.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, no. It's really someone who is looking to increase their protein at any opportunity. And I think for us, having an indulgent shake means that ultimately more people are likely to try it because it does just actually taste nice. But it's also giving you 20 grams of protein. I think in a world where unfortunately a lot of protein products don't necessarily taste that nice, I think it's really important to have something that more people can engage with that perhaps haven't tried protein before. But as obviously we're seeing with super strong tailwinds behind protein consumption rising, many people are buying to the category for the first time. And I still think it's got a long way to go to appeal to the more mainstream customer versus your sort of gym bro, as we call them.
Is there anything else, Bryn, that you have noticed or that you're thinking about as you look ahead to the rest of 2026? We have a whole year ahead of us of how to really build a brand effectively in this market, as well as building the right types of investor relationships. Like, what are some unique things top of mind for this year that maybe you haven't had to address in the past?
I think in general this probably applies to other years too. But capital efficiency, when we first launched, I think it was probably easier to raise than it has been in the last year. And just understanding where to put your dollars as a really early stage brand. I mean, we're getting past that we passed that in general in the UK. We're still, we're in about 400 stores in the US. But when you have a store count in one region, perhaps doing a PR campaign is not going to translate to sales on shelf, and actually spending as close to shelf as possible is probably a much more pragmatic way to put your dollars to work. Whether that is, say, if you have a great tasting product sampling in your top stores, and not every store because it just doesn't seem to pay back in that sense. Whether it's having shelf barkers to make sure that you're educating people about your product if you feel like it does need education. And ultimately just monitoring each of these channels to understand it. I mean, we have a great return of investment when we're advertising, say, through a specific retailer's website. We have one of the best. And perhaps say versus digital couponings, which if not set up the right way, might not convert as quickly. So it's just really understanding it. I think it's often numbers like cost of acquisition are often, attached to digital brands, but actually in retail, you're still spending vast amount and these need to be tracked. And I think it's really important to get sort of really close to those numbers as early on as possible to make sure that when you're spending money, it's returning sale rates, which is ultimately the most important thing. I think a lot of investors who haven't, operated in the space will want to see top line revenue, which of course is important. But the reality is, if you're not building, strong early velocities in your first retailer, there's no story to sell to other retailers. They don't buy into top line revenue; they buy into turn rates, and that's ultimately, I think, as a founder, where you really need to be focusing early on.
100% agree with that. And I think that's, you're doing such a great job being really thoughtful about that approach. And I think anyone trying to grow a business right now can learn a lot from that. It's key. So thank you, Bryn. This is great. So many of the things that you
My
said, I
pleasure.
think represent the future of how to run a business in the right way.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Bryn. And I think we're past our time, although we love chatting with you. I think we could have done this for another hour. I know Jessica loves doing this too. So, but we thank you and for joining us. We thank all of you for joining us out there. We hope this was informative. Please reach out if you have any questions. Bryn, we hope to see you at Expo West. That's the
Definitely.
plan. And again, reach out with any questions, and we hope all of you have a great day.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
Mike.
guys.
Thanks, Bryn. Thanks, everyone.